The morning began like a secret the earth didn't want to share. Pale light crawled over the far hills, touching the edges of the ranch, where dust slept in the hoof prints of yesterday. Wind pressed through the broken slats of the barn, carrying the smell of hay and wood smoke. Inside the kitchen, a woman moved slowly between iron pots, her steps careful, her breath steady but tired. Her name was Bella, 24 years old, heavy in frame yet light in the way she treated the world, as if each plate she washed and each loaf she baked were tiny acts of prayer. Her sleeves were rolled high, and when she leaned toward the fire, the light caught the faint purple bloom of bruises along her arm. She noticed it, sighed, pulled her sleeve lower. She had learned long ago that pain looked better when hidden. The ranch was still half asleep, the horses not yet fed, the men in the bunkhouse turning on their beds with the kind of dreams only hard labor gives. Out on the porch, the owner stood with his coffee, watching the sun climb up from the rim of the world. Brock was his name, 34, built like the land itself, carved from work and wind. The people in town called him the Angry Rancher. Some said he was angry because the rains had failed him 2 seasons in a row, some because a woman he once loved had died out on the trail. But those who had looked closer knew anger was just the skin he wore to keep grief from showing its bones. He watched Bella through the open door, her hair tied back with a thin strip of cloth, her shoulders bent in that steady rhythm of someone used to carrying more than her share. Something in her quiet unsettled him. She never looked anyone in the eye long enough for a question to rise. She never complained, never asked for help. Yet her silence was heavier than the thunderclouds that rolled in late each summer. By mid-morning, the ranch had come alive. Tommy and Hank, the 2 older hands, were fixing the corral fence. Young Eli, all elbows and curiosity, chased chickens around the yard until Bella scolded him gently, her voice low but kind. Brock stepped off the porch, boots sinking in the soft dust. He gave orders without looking at her, but she heard his voice and stiffened as though expecting a blow. That small flinch caught him off guard. No one flinched at Brock unless they carried ghosts. The day grew hot, the kind of heat that pressed on your chest and made time slow down. Bella worked through it, her cheeks flushed, her breath shallow. When she carried water to the troughs, the buckets shook slightly in her hands. Brock saw her pause by the fence, pressing a hand to her side. He moved toward her without thinking. "You all right?" he said, the words rough but edged with concern. She nodded, keeping her gaze on the ground. "Just the sun, sir. I'll manage." "Sit down a minute." "Can't. Bread'll burn." He almost smiled. "Bread can wait. Folks can't." But she walked away before he could say more, leaving him staring after her. That night the wind changed. A storm gathered on the far horizon, blue-black and mean. The men tied the horses and checked the windows. Bella worked late, cleaning the dining table while the air trembled with thunder. Brock came in, hair damp from the first drops. He was about to speak when he saw her arm again, sleeve torn, the bruise now raw in the lamplight. His breath stopped. "What happened to you?" She froze, turning her back. "Nothing." "That don't look like nothing." Her voice thinned, fell against the barn door. "Don't lie to me." The room was quiet except for the ticking of the wall clock and the sigh of the fire. She tried to keep her hands busy, but one shook hard enough to spill water across the table. "It ain't your business, Mr. Brock." He stepped closer. "Maybe not. But you work under my roof. Makes it my concern if someone's hurting you." She closed her eyes, and for the first time since she'd arrived weeks ago, her mask cracked. "My husband," she whispered. "Least he was. Left me up north when his debts caught up. Before he did, he made sure I remembered him." Brock's fist tightened. He saw flashes of another time, his sister, Mary, crying on a porch, her face swollen from a man who swore he loved her. 2 months later she'd taken a rope and ended what the world refused to fix. The memory struck like lightning. He looked at Bella, trembling under the lamplight. "I ain't leaving you," he said. The words came from somewhere he didn't know existed anymore. She blinked, unsure whether to fear or trust the heat in his voice. "Why would you care?" "'Cause I seen what men like that do. And I'll be damned if I let it happen again." Thunder cracked overhead. shaking the windows. Rain burst against the roof, drumming hard. They stood there, facing each other, two storms colliding. One made of weather, the other of human hurt. She opened her mouth, but the words drowned in the noise. He took his coat off and laid it on her shoulders. Neither moved for a long moment. The firelight flickered between them like a heartbeat trying to be heard. The storm passed but left the night trembling. Bella went to her quarters, sat on the edge of the bed, touching the coat like it was something alive. She hadn't been defended in years. Outside, Brock paced the porch until the rain slowed, anger and sorrow fighting inside him until neither won. Days followed quietly. Brock began appearing near the kitchen more often, offering small help, chopping wood, fixing the hinge on the door, replacing the cracked window pane she used to stuff with cloth. He never said why. She never asked. Still, something wordless grew between them, slow and careful, like grass returning after a fire. One morning, Eli ran to her with a scraped knee. She cleaned it and gave him a biscuit fresh from the oven. The boy grinned, crumbs on his chin. Brock saw them from across the yard and felt a warmth that scared him more than any gunfight. That evening he sat by the fire pit, watching sparks drift into the purple sky. Bella came out to dump a bucket of peelings for the hogs. The wind tugged at her skirt. "You ever miss home?" he asked. She hesitated. "Home's where folks want you. Don't reckon I ever had much of that." He poked the fire with a stick. "Maybe that's what we're all looking for, somewhere that don't spit us back out." She smiled faintly. "You got that here." He shook his head. "This land don't love nobody. It just lets you stay if you're stubborn enough." They shared a quiet laugh that didn't quite know how to be happy yet. Nights grew cooler. Autumn touched the grass with gold. Bella's laughter, rare but real, began to fill the spaces between shores. Brock found himself listening for it, like a man listens for rain after drought. Then, one evening, trouble rode in. A horseman came through the gate without invitation, coat torn, face mean with whiskey. Bella was in the yard, hanging sheets, when she froze. Brock noticed her go pale. The man slid off his horse and spat in the dust. "Miss me, darling," he sneered. Her voice broke. "You got no right being here." "I got every right. You're my wife, remember?" Brock stepped out of the barn, shotgun resting against his shoulder. "She don't belong to you." The man turned, eyes bloodshot. "And who the hell are you?" "The one telling you to leave." The yard went still. Even the horses sensed the edge of violence. The man lunged, grabbing Bella's wrist. She cried out. Brock's shotgun fired once into the dirt by the man's boot, the sound cracking the evening wide open. "You ever touch her again, I'll put the next one in you," Brock said, voice low and deadly calm. The man stumbled back, muttering curses, then mounted his horse and galloped toward the hills, rain clouds gathering behind him as if the sky itself wanted him gone. Bella fell to her knees, shaking. Brock dropped the gun, ran to her, knelt beside her. Her hands were cold, her breath ragged. "He's gone," he said softly. "Ain't nobody gonna hurt you no more." Tears came, slow at first, then fierce. Years of silence, spilling out all at once. She leaned against him, and he held her, not knowing if he was steadying her or himself. The ranch around them faded. The wind, the dust, the faraway thunder, all gone. Only the sound of her sobs remained, honest and raw. When she finally lifted her head, he saw the strength that had always lived beneath the fear. Her eyes, red and shining, met his. "You shouldn't have risked yourself," she whispered. "Don't call it a risk," he said. "Call it what a man's supposed to do." She gave a trembling laugh that tasted of relief. "I don't know how to thank you." "Don't. Just stay." The word hung there, heavy with meaning. She nodded, tears glistening again. Later, when the house was quiet and the stars stretched wide above the plains, Brock found her sitting by the hearth, the light painting her face in amber tones. He stood at the doorway, hat in his hands, unsure how to begin. "I ain't much for words," he said, "but I reckon you ought to hear this from me plain. Since you came here, things feel different. The noise in my head's gone quieter. You make the place feel like something more than just land and fences." She looked up, lips parting as if afraid to breathe. I ain't saying it fancy, he continued, voice rough, but I love you, Bella. Been fightin' it, but I do. Her eyes filled, and she shook her head softly as if disbelief were safer than hope. But hope won. She reached out, took his hand, the same hand that had slammed a shotgun against her past, and held it to her chest. I never thought anyone could see me again, she whispered. Not really see me. I see you, he said. And I ain't leaving you. The fire crackled. Outside, the rain that had threatened all evening finally began to fall, gentle this time, as if the world was offering a benediction. She leaned her forehead against his, and for the first time since either of them could remember, peace settled in like dawn after a long night. The ranch slept under the sound of rain. Two souls, scarred and stubborn, sat by the fading fire and let the silence hold them. Somewhere in that silence lived forgiveness, and somewhere beyond it, a promise that they would never again walk through hurt alone. And if a stranger had passed by the gate just then, he might have seen through the window a man and woman framed in the glow of firelight, not perfect, not saved, but staying. And in the wide emptiness of the Wild West, staying was the bravest thing a heart could do.